How would this law affect the practical operations of businesses?
Well, I think many businesses have not invested very much in what I like to call the issue-free environment. I don't want anybody to be union-free. I want everybody to be issue-free. And you do that by showing respect and dignity to your people and making sure that your BOSSs are really effective at that, as opposed to double SOBs backwards. I mean, that's really what it is that we're trying to do here. If the PRO Act is passed, companies are going to have to take a look at how do they put together their supply chain? What's going to happen if the supply chain is hit with secondary activity? How do they begin to educate all of the components of the supply chain? When the supply chain goes to the target and says, make this stop, what in the world are you going to do? How do you make it stop? If you're in the franchise business model, what do you do? Does the franchisor decide to stop adding franchisee? What's going to happen to the value of the franchisees when they try to sell it or pass it on to their kids? It's going to have those kinds of impacts. We'll get to the PRO Act provisions with the ABC test in a couple of minutes. But, you go down further with respect to these operational issues. Who are your supervisors? They changed the definition of a supervisor, so you have few of them. What are you going to do in the event you lose an election? The unions were very, very smart. This is different than EFCA, where you lost your right to vote in the first place, and the cards were the whole king, and you just counted the cards. They knew that they couldn't do that again because they got killed with the messaging of giving up your right to vote. So in this situation, they have an election, the union loses the election, and what happens? There's a minor digression, there's some kind of a problem with the election, and what does the labor board say? They count the cards. So you've still voted, it's just that your vote has been nullified by the cards, So it's very thoughtful in the way they went about this. And then, you wind up getting a contract by an arbitrator imposed upon you. It's going to last for 2 years. Well, I got to tell you, that's going to change your business model. And it's not only going to change the particular operation where this union activity occurred, but it's going to wind up impacting all of your employees, because then the union is going to shop the contract that was imposed upon you by the arbitrator.
So for those who are younger than me, they don't remember the era of the 60s and the 70s where there were large union contracts. They were multi-year, they were overlapping, and they had wage and price escalators in them. So if the CPI went up, the wages automatically went up, and they would literally settle one such contract, use that as the model for the next one, up its sum, use that for the next one, up its sum. So you get this sort of rolling cost shock that rolls through the economy. It makes it very hard to have a good inflation-free growth environment. And the United States did not have a good inflation-free growth environment in the late 60s and 70s. It took a lot of work to get that under control. We'd be going back to that kind of a risk.